Let's play GM. That's right. We're all going to be James Gladstone today. I'm going to tell you what I think the Jaguars need for this team on this edition of Locked On Jaguars.
You are Locked On Jaguars, your daily Jacksonville Jaguars podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network, your team every day.
Look at y'all showing up again here on Locked On Jaguars for your boy, Tony Wiggins. That's right. It is your team every day here on Locked On Jaguars. We thank you for making us your first listen. You know who I am. I'm the credentialed member of the media host for this great podcast, for this great city of Jacksonville. And I'm glad to have you here each and every day. Shout out to the everydayers for making that happen for me. And if you're new here, we'll give you a reason to come back. I hope it's not your first episode, but if it is, today's episode is sponsored and brought to you by Game Time. Download the Game Time app, create an account, and use the code LOCKEDONNFL for $20 off your first purchase. Also, we'd like to give you a quick shout out and let you know that we are ad-free on Amazon Music, to make sure you slide on over to Amazon Music and check us out over there ad-free. All right, I'm going to give you a little bit of a rundown of what we're going to talk about today. At the end of the show, we're going to be like more. What do I mean by more? That means that we're always trying to make the team better. It creates a bigger margin of error, if you will. That you can, the better you are, the more mistakes that you can probably end up getting away with. And it's not your goal to make mistakes, but it's football. Things happen. We'll talk about that. Right smack in the middle, starters in depth. What the Jaguars need may not be what's actually available in terms of right now with trades before the trade deadline and next year's draft. Because, we're going to look ahead a little bit. We ain't giving up on this season. We're going to start with the three positions that need upgrades. I'm going to explain to y'all why I'm doing this. Normally, in the past, when we start doing shows like this, that means the Jaguar season's done, right? And we're already looking ahead to next year. We are not doing that right now. And I don't think there's going to be a point that we are ever going to be giving up on this season. I think this team has shown themselves to be good enough and competitive enough, and the coaches are smart enough, and this team is gritty enough that I think they're going to make the playoffs, or they're going to be fighting for it at the very least in the last couple of weeks of the season. Probably they still have a shot to win the division. They're one game behind the Colts, and they played them twice. I mean, you got to beat them now, but they play them twice. So the reason we're doing this right now today for at this period is we're actually going to have some fun with it and do it from a standpoint of let's see if we can make our team take the next jump. I'm not getting ahead of it. I'm not saying that there's not more blue sky for the rest of this year. So I'm just trying to look at it through the lens of maybe James Gladstone, or Jimmy Stones, or whatever y'all want to call him. Affectionately, of course, shout out to the GM of the Jags. But I really am doing this, one, because everyone wants to make trades. Two, we don't have a first round pick. And if the Jaguars, let's just say, go 10-7, make the playoffs, but kind of play in the playoffs like they've played this year, close game in the first round, maybe win the first round or not. And then in the second round, play the same type of game. What if what you've seen for the next 6 weeks continues to happen? They actually get into the playoffs, and they do have a very, very bright future. What would you think after these 6 games, if things keep going the exact same way that they're going? What does this team need? You can look at it from that perspective and also look and say, can we get something like that at the trade deadline right now? We kind of talked about it yesterday. So I'm going to hit the 3 positions that I think need to be upgraded. But first, before I get to that at the top of segment 2, we're going to finish this one, and I'm going to tell you what I believe about the Jaguars right now before we start putting people on the roster and looking at different positions. I think everything's okay. Everybody needs to kind of take a little bit of a deep breath, right? And I explained this. I was on 930 radio this morning with Terry Norvell, and I explained that what it is so you have a scale, right? And I can't think of the little thing, but you know the scale that you get on when you have to slide it back and forth? Okay, so almost think of it as like an hourglass, but it's a sliding scale. The more you slide this way, you're going to start missing something on the other side. and then you try to come back the other way. I used to say it's called not being able to walk and chew bubble gum at the same time, but now it's not really that. What it is I think when you lead a certain way, when you lead with stuff, you tend to make yourself deficient in other areas until you get good enough that doing one thing doesn't affect the other thing, right? They talk so much about complementary football, but that's usually offense versus defense. I'm looking at it like offense and offense, meaning if you want to attack in the passing game, it shouldn't make your running game go away. Or if you want to play fast and play with tempo, it shouldn't take away from the fact that you also want to play ball control. There's a way that you can do both. You have to get first downs in order to do that, right? You're wearing the other team down, but if you don't convert, you're kind of wearing yourself down because now you're giving the ball back to your opponent too much. So that's what I mean. Can you get good enough to press the line on some issues, but still maintain who and what you are and the integrity of your entire program? I think the better you get, and that's what I meant when I said the more talent you get, the more wiggle room you have for mistakes because they're easy to overcome. Right now, the Jaguars haven't shown that they can really overcome mistakes without a whole bunch of turnovers and miracles. I do think that they're figuring it out. They're going to learn how to do that offensively. One of the things that's going to help them is if they got to slow down on some of these penalties, especially the pre-snap stuff and the procedures and lining up wrong and all of those things. So that's exactly what I mean. You don't want them to lose their juice and the things that they do pre-snap that give you answers with the motions and how they formation people and all of the reads Trevor has to make. Those things are good, but you want them to be able to do it without getting a penalty. So how can they figure out how do we get these tells? How do we get the communication down to the point where we can still do that stuff that provides the answers we want, but we don't want the penalties that come along with it, right? There's a way you can do it. Is it better communication? Is it speeding up your own process? Is it more familiarity and understanding? Is it signaling? Are we going to be able to just do that without constantly hurting ourselves? You shouldn't have to dumb it down. You shouldn't have to change the approach just because you can't control the things that you should be able to control to get the playoff in time. So those are all things that have to happen for them to be better. And I'm not going to blame everything on the players, but I will tell you sometimes, and we've seen this in the past, sometimes when a coach does things, he's doing it to try to help the team. Either he's setting something up, just like I'll give you an example. Everyone, why they keep throwing the ball? Why are they throwing the ball? Why are they running all of these screens? They're not working. And then they run what looks like a screen and they catch Brian Thomas Jr. up there by himself. I believe the Bears did the exact same play the other night. It was either the Bears. I know it was Washington. Washington did the same thing where they faked the screen and the dude was wide open. McCaffrey was wide open in the end zone. I'm pretty sure they watched that play and watched Jacksonville do it and probably said, that's a good idea. We can do that ourselves. But they do things to set other things up. And sometimes they do things to hide their deficiency. So what we're going to do is, because of the impending trade deadline that's coming up and everyone assuming that because the Jaguars are clearing so much space that they're just going to add more people. Now, what could they really, really be looking for? What positions? We'll go over that and more here on Locked On Jaguars.
I'm Cody Rourke from Locked On Broncos, and this episode is brought to you by Peloton. Peloton is shaping the future of fitness with the brand new Peloton Cross-Training Tread Plus, powered by Peloton IQ. This is Peloton's most advanced equipment yet, giving you real-time guidance and endless ways to move, whether you're running, lifting, or you're cross-training with your favorite instructors like Alex Toussaint. It's training reimagined to make your workout more personal. Peloton is built for breakthroughs with features that help you plan, stay motivated, and hit peak performance. You can let yourself run, lift, flex, and go while Peloton handles all the rest. Plus, Peloton IQ provides real-time strength coaching, tracking your progress and suggesting weights that challenge you so you can get stronger. Plus, the new movement tracking camera, it counts your reps and corrects your form in real time, making sure every rep is safer and smarter. So let yourself run, lift, flex, push, and go. Explore the new Peloton cross-training Tread Plus at onepeloton.com.
All right, today's show is also sponsored and brought to you by our friends over at FanDuel. I know it's week 7 coming up, and if you haven't already gotten involved, you should, because the NFL season is still here, and FanDuel has an offer you don't want to miss. Right now, new customers can bet just $5 and get $300 in bonus bets if you win. That's right. Pick a bet, put down $5, and if it hits, you'll unlock $300 in bonus bets that you can use across the app. The good thing about that app is you get information on there before you make your bet. Injury reports, last-minute stuff. They let you know who's trending. They give you the information whether guys are probable, maybe out or not, and you'll have an informed decision so you can make a good wager. So what are you waiting for? Visit FanDuel.com. Download the FanDuel app today and get started. I'm telling you, $5. If you bet $5 and win, guess what that means? You win $300 in bonus bets at FanDuel.com. All right, we're moving and grooving here on Locked On Jaguars. Ready is your team every day. Thank y'all for joining me. All right, I'm going to play GM. And in no specific order. I'm going to give you 3 positions. How about 4? Let me give you 4 because I was torn on the last one. So I'm going to give you 4 positions that if the Jaguars go out and try to add someone in free agency, it should be at these spots. Not in free agency before the trade deadline. I know everybody's number 1 is left tackle, so I'm going to mention left tackle, nose tackle. I'm going to mention left tackle too. So there you go. There goes 2 of them right there because I can't untie my tongue. Nose tackle and left tackle. The most likely place that they're going to be able to find help is nose tackle because any left tackle out there better than Walker Little, ain't nobody giving him up unless he's an older player like Trent Richardson or Trent Williams. That's the second time in a row I call Trent Williams Trent Richardson. But if they look up and go, nah, man, you know what? We ain't going nowhere. Let's get some picks. Can we move him? You can give us young Walker Little. If the Jaguars feel like they need to upgrade and they want to take a run for it this year, yeah, I'd entertain it. I don't know if it's possible, but I'd definitely entertain it. That's what I do. And I know Trent may only have a year left after this one. Fine. You get him. You know what? Use a 2nd or 3rd round pick next year on a young left tackle or cross-train Wyatt Milam over there or do something. But that's where I'm going. Nose tackle, yeah, they need to upgrade that position too. They need a dominant player in that spot. This is why I kept telling people, man, that the Mason Graham thing didn't make a lot of sense. And prior to the draft, I even asked some of the coaches, man, I'm like, do you really, I think it was defensive line coach Edwards. I was like, you really want that 0 or that 1? You want that guy? Because I'm sitting there thinking like if they take Mason Graham or if they're looking for, no, he said, yeah, it's a preference. They actually prefer to have that nose tackle. Some people can get away with it. Some people have a dude that's not a pure nose tackle. The Jaguars want one. So I expect that that's something that they'll address either in the draft or free agency or both in the offseason. But in the interim, if a great player, and remember, it has to be a great player, right? And I know a lot of people talk about Simmons. Simmons doesn't play that. I'm sure he can. Simmons out of for the Titans. Devontae Sweat is their nose tackle. Simmons is like a big 3 technique, but I'm sure he can do whatever. He's kind of like in Ndamukong Suh where he can do a little bit of whatever, but of course that would still be an upgrade. Everybody's talking about Dexter Lawrence, but if the Giants go on a little win streak here, like they won 2 out of their last 3, man, and then Philly and Dallas and Washington, they ain't necessarily running away with that thing, and Brian Daboll's trying to save his job, and so is Joe Shane. If they can mess around and get to the back end of the wild card, they ain't going to give away Dexter Lawrence, but I'd take him in a heartbeat. You know, a lot of people keep talking about Christian Wilkins or whatever. You know, it is what it is at this point. Ain't nobody, it seems like he's out there and nobody else is reaching for him for whatever reason. You can use that to your imagination or Google or whatever, but he's a 3 technique. He'd be in the rotation with Eric Armstead and Mason Smith. So I will say that interior defensive line is something that they need help at. Safety, I'm pretty sure that a lot of people think the Jaguars need a starting safety right now, like a ball hawk, pure, all over the field, sideline to sideline safety. I would agree. I think they'll probably address that in free agency or in the draft next year. I don't think that there's anybody out there that they could trade for at this point that's going to just come in here and light it up. And then, even though the Jags are having a lot of success this year in their first year, and it's all gas and no brakes, I still think they're going to have a little bit of an eye towards the future. And not get too many older guys that are going to have to be re-upped when they're trying to re-up the dudes that they absolutely have already. So left tackle, nose tackle, safety, and speed rusher. I think they like BJ Green and the young pieces and parts. But for a team that has this thing right in front of them, I'm thinking they just need to get more out of Josh Allen. Trayvon was playing fine until he got hurt. I think they need to get more out of Josh Allen. And I'm not just talking about in terms of pressure, but there's no reason a team with those two guys at edge rusher that people ought to be banging on the table for edge rush help. None. I do think that they could use an element of young speed on the outside, that when those guys are taking a break, that the other quarterback isn't back there just baking cookies in the pocket like it looked like Sam Darnold was, although that was a lot of max protect and two wide receivers out in the route. And I don't know how they were able to complete all of those passes with two wide receivers out in the route. But they've done some things at corner that they like. I believe they like their young guys. They love Travis, of course. I think Eric Murray's played well, in my opinion. Jordan Lewis, I forgot to mention him, and he's played well. Been a little quiet the last couple of weeks, but that doesn't mean he's not playing well. It just means that people probably stop trying him and knows where he is and say, okay, if he's over there, we're going to run the play the other way. And that's what teams usually do. But those are the positions. Specifically, I mentioned Josh Allen. And I'm not saying Josh hasn't played well. I'm just saying a lot is expected of you when you're that guy, right? He's quote unquote supposed to be their best defensive player. A lot is expected of you. So I'm expecting a little bit more, right? In terms of finishing and getting sacks and changing the game. We've seen him do it at periods and points throughout his career, so I know he can. But that left tackle position is a little bit bothersome. The only thing that makes me feel good about it is Walker Little's age and the amount of money that he makes. None of that precludes him from being moved. There's still room for him to possibly get better. But he got manhandled the other day on one-on-ones by a linebacker, and I didn't like what I saw. He's a good enough player that he could still garner interest. I just saw a redraft of that draft, and he was actually in the first round at the end of the first round. I think they had the 49ers taking him. Isn't that ironic that I'm sitting here talking about a team like the 49ers that has a bunch of old players that are all banged up, and even though their record is not bad right now, it is to the point where they might look around and go, man, we are the walking wounded. Like, they're not Detroit that can recover from all of those injuries. And then it's their top players at their critical positions that's getting hurt. So maybe there is a move to be made. I hear a lot of people talking about Jalen Carter. And they go, oh, he's not necessarily a nose tackle. He played nose tackle in the Super Bowl. And on their depth chart, that's where he was listed. In Vic Fangio's defense, Vic Fangio, the same Vic Fangio that when he was in Miami, his linebackers coach was Anthony Campanile, right? You can mix and match that thing up. I think if you have a guy playing right over the center, he just has to be a dude that can play right over the center. And Jalen Carter can do whatever he wants to do. So you hear a lot of talk about him. I even put a feeler out about A.J. Brown, like, what's the price? I ain't got my message back yet when it comes to that. Be careful not to get caught up in positions too, because they may just trade for a player. And you're like, why did they go get him? Because he's really, really good, right? He's outstanding. That's why they did it. And then we'll just move stuff around and do whatever we have to do. Notice what I didn't say. I didn't say they need a quarterback. Now, I know a lot of people going to listen to this podcast and be like, Trevor stinks, dude. You need that. I've been getting stuff like that. And I'll explain in segment 3 why I don't really respond or answer to those things. It's not like I don't value your opinion, but I'll get into that in just a second when we talk about more. What do they need? What do they need to do? And whether or not they need to do it now or wait until the off season, or just take a look to see how this season is going to finish. We'll talk about more of that here on Locked On Jaguars. All right, today's show is brought to you and sponsored by our friends over at Game Time. I know y'all be looking for tickets and stuff, and then at the end of the day, you can't get them, right? The reason why you can't get those tickets is because you ain't going to the right place. The NFL season is already in your face, and honestly, there's nothing better than being in a stadium surrounded by fans cheering your team. But let's be honest, getting tickets can be a hassle between queues, login screens, and prices. Jumping all over the place at checkout is very, very frustrating. That's why I use Game Time, the app that gives you the advantage. Back to the fans. Game Time is fast, easy, and backed by the Game Time guarantee. You always get 100% authentic tickets delivered on time and at the best price. Plus, all fees are included. So the price you see is the price you pay. Don't screw around with people that change the price at the register. Download the Game Time app today and create an account and use the code Locked On NFL for $20 off of your first purchase. That's right. Terms apply again. That's promo code LOCKEDON NFL for $20 off. Swipe, tap, ticket, go. Download Game Time today. All right, moving and grooving here on Locked On Jaguars, where it is your team every day. We thank you for making us your first listen. We're going to get into more. What do they need more of? Without thinking about the personnel aspect of it, they just need more familiarity with what they're doing and more clarity and to be a little cleaner and a little tighter, especially this weekend with the Rams. I don't think the offensive line issues that we have are. Y'all remember when they were 8-3 and I came on and did that show? I was like, we got a problem because I saw them get bullied by the 49ers. I don't think that's where they are right now. But I do believe that you can always get better at those positions, right? I'm a little bit concerned about left tackle long term. I think Walker will be fine right now. And we've seen him play well enough this year to think that, he can recover from the game he had the other day. But I'm going to tell you something. Once people see stuff like that on tape now, everybody's licking their chops and saying whatever they did, that's what we're going to do, because Trevor was totally disrupted the other day, and he still played maybe his personal best game of the season the other day against Seattle. So, but I do believe that is the key spot. Looking at it, it's like, okay, that has to be addressed. Whether they believe that they can continue to work with him, and Sean Starrett has done a real good job. Walker was playing as good as he had played in his entire career. And then now all of a sudden, that nightmarish game that he had the other day made us go, ooh, and wonder. Just getting healthy all the way along the front, getting Robert Hainsey back, and McCary's a little banged up along with Anton Harrison. Ezra Cleveland's been pretty good all year. Yeah, I said that. Y'all heard me. And they still have Wyatt Milam, right? I think adding more to that unit is going to be something that they're going to look forward to, especially from a competitive standpoint. Safety. I really do believe that they've given some guys an opportunity at safety. And while they haven't played terribly, you're just still looking for people who can make plays, go above the X's and O's. Like, you're not going to sit here and say that safety is a quote unquote problem, but you're also not going to sit here and say that safety is a solution, right? Like, I think that there's enough there at corner with the guys that they have and what they're running to be all right. Greg Newsome will be fine. Don't overdo that and blow that out of proportion. I think Greg Newsome will be okay if they decide to keep him. Travis, obviously, Jarian Jones and Monteric Buster Brown. I don't think that that's a weak spot for this team by any stretch of the imagination. The way that they drafted at running back tells me that running back isn't ever going to be something where they spend a bunch of money or use first-round picks, and I can't blame them for that. But everything still has a little bit of an individualism to it. And what I mean by that is it's still about how good of a pure football player somebody is. They could still address wide receiver, believe it or not. Diami Brown is a 1-year player that they signed. I don't know what Tim Patrick's contract is, but Parker Washington, this is year 3 for Parker Washington, and a guy that was chosen late. So decisions have to be made, especially if they start putting Travis more on defense than offense. I don't know if they're going to do that or not, and we'll just have to wait and see about that. But Brian Thomas Jr. is obviously the number one, and he's had some issues this year. It kind of looked like he got over it a little bit, and then he had a big drop again the other day. You don't want that to be a recurring theme, right, with him? Because if it is, then that'll tell you that, okay, we might need to look and see if there's another guy. I believe that they think that because they're different from everyone else, maybe with the exception of the Rams, with how they approach the draft, that they got a track record. I don't know how big James Gladstone was in the Puka Nacua selection. He knows, though, and if he had something to do with them getting him and Kyron Williams and guys like that and Kitchens, who they drafted out of Miami, then the safety and the wide receiver positions is going to be something that he probably believes he doesn't need a first-round pick for, that he could get a third or fourth-round pick to be able to come in. And when you look at LaQuint Allen and you look at Bayshaw Tootin and Wyatt Milam, they have a reason to feel confident that beyond the first round, beyond the first day of the draft, that they can get impact players on this team, which is why they probably said, all right, we're here in the top 5. What are we going to get? You know what we're going to do? We're going to take the most mercurial, the most talented player that we can get, one that would be one of the players in whatever draft that we're drafting. He would be sitting right here, and that's Travis Hunter. If we're here, let's go ahead and be here and just go for it all with him. So I think they'll be able to add players. I also believe that they have a plethora of draft picks, and right before the trade deadline, you can really, really get a bunch of good players that teams know that they're not going to keep, especially teams that aren't going to make the playoffs. And the teams are just like, okay, we need to get some kind of compensation for them. You start loading them up with 5th and 6th round picks, maybe even a 4th rounder. I think this is where James Gladstone is going to do well, and I'm really looking forward to watching them after they come from London. I want y'all to enjoy the game Sunday morning, but still I want you to pay attention to what happens in the bye week. They're going to have 2 whole weeks to do nothing but sit there and get things done and try to look and see if they give out any extensions. Check that out. Make sure you scour these teams to see who's available and what's available, what coach might get fired, who might not last, who's going to need more ammunition. Teams talking about they need to move up in the draft next year to get a quarterback. Like, I don't know who they're going to get, but if y'all talking about moving up, you're going to need picks. You got players on your team that you don't necessarily know you're going to be able to keep. The Jaguars have a plethora of picks. Nobody's trading a first rounder for anything anyway. I'm telling you, man, it's something for y'all to keep your eye on. But that's my spiel. It would be Walker Little asking for more from Josh Allen, not moving on from him. And probably looking at the safety position for a dynamic playmaker at safety that can make plays. And, of course, nose tackle. They can go the route. They tried it with Colin Saunders. I don't think it worked out the way they thought. So I think they may go to that well again to see what's out there and how good the player is. So keep your eye on it. Just something to ponder and think about. Make sure you head over to Locked On NFL twice a day. Tyler Rowland early in the morning and me in the barbershop in the afternoon. Good show, man. We use the help of local experts from around the National Football League to keep us with our pulse on it, to let you know everything that's going on around the NFL. All right, man, we'll see you next time here on Locked On Jaguars. We do not take you for granted. We are glad that you join us every single day, and we'll see you tomorrow.